Hey everyone, how y'all doing? Welcome back to my channel. So I read a total of 8 books in the month of May, which is pretty good. I kind of wish that I could have read more, but I've been so busy focusing on writing and other things that reading just hasn't been a priority recently, unfortunately. But I am hoping to read a bit more and try to get back into the swing of things. But anyways, I read 8 books in the month of May, and I'm pretty happy with what I read, so let's just go ahead and jump into it. So the first book I read was Take Me Home Tonight by Morgan Matson. This is her newest release. I actually have a whole reading vlog for this, and I actually have a lot of reading vlogs for the books that I've read this month, so I'll make sure to mention those as I go through them. But I did a whole spoiler-free reading vlog for Take Me Home Tonight that you guys can go check out. That'll link above and down below. But this is Morgan Matson's newest release. It is another YA contemporary, and in this one we are following Kat and Stevie while they go on this big wild night in New York, and basically everything that could go wrong does go wrong, and the night ends up not being what they expected it to be. Overall, I feel like I did enjoy this book. Not to the same caliber as some of her other ones, but I definitely enjoyed it more than her previous release, Save the Date, which kind of deals with a very similar premise of everything that could go wrong does go wrong, which is something that I didn't enjoy in Save the Date, but enjoyed a little bit more in this one. I just feel like it fit this book a bit better, and it just, I don't know, something about it just worked better for me in this one. So some things that I really enjoyed about this book include the setting. I love how it takes place in New York over this one big crazy night. I went to New York in the end of 2019. It was the last vacation that I went on before COVID, so reading this felt really comforting and really nice to kind of escape into a world where COVID doesn't exist and people can still travel to New York and, you know, have this fun crazy adventure, because the last year has not felt like that. There have been no crazy adventures, so it was really nice to read about characters going on an adventure in New York. And overall the characters were good. I liked them. I enjoyed Kat and Stevie. I enjoyed the love interest that Kat had, and I liked all their dynamics with each other. But there were some things about this book that were not my favorites. So starting off with the whole side story in this book. So there is one friend that Kat and Stevie leave behind in Connecticut, and Morgan Matson decided to give her her own side story. So there are chapters titled Meanwhile Back in Connecticut, and it's all about her story back home while she's babysitting these kids. And there's this whole thing that goes on. I don't want to like talk too much about it because I don't want to like spoil anything, but it's kind of like a thriller-esque type of thing, and I didn't love it really at all. When I reread this book one day, I'm definitely going to just skip over those chapters because they aren't really that important, especially now that I know what happens in them. I feel like I'll be fine to skip them later on. I just feel like they really interrupted the flow of the story. They didn't feel that important, and they didn't come around in the end in a satisfying enough way for it to feel worth it to me to have it there. Also, just in general, she decided to switch up the writing style for it to have like a big distinction between them, I guess, and I did not like the writing style. It felt very stilted. I did not really like it, which was really disappointing. But that is like the biggest thing about this that I didn't like, and I kind of wish that it wasn't there. So now to talk about the cameos in this book. All of Morgan Matson's books take place in Stanwich, Connecticut. It is a made-up town in Connecticut that she created for her books to take place in, and we often see cameos from past characters. There was one cameo that I really enjoyed seeing. It was a character that I never really expected to make a big appearance again, but I was happy to see them and kind of see where they were and who they kind of became over the course of the years since we've seen them. But the other cameo, I enjoyed seeing the character again, but I didn't really like where the character ended up. It just kind of left a bitter taste in my mouth, and I kind of wish that, you know, like, why bring the character back if they're not gonna, like, I don't know, maybe that's just like a personal thing, because I don't know if I've really heard many other people talk about it and be annoyed by it like I am. I think that I just love all of her characters so much, and I want them to all be happy, and we didn't really get any closure with it, and I'm a little salty about it. Anyways, I did enjoy this book. I was just slightly disappointed by a few parts of it, but overall I did enjoy it, and I'm glad that I read it, and I do recommend that others read it as well. The next book I read was Blood Like Magic by Lizelle Sambury. This is an ARC that I received from the publisher, so thank you so much to them for sending this to me. This book does not come out until June 15th, so it's coming out very soon, so make sure to look out for this one in a couple of weeks. But this is a YA fantasy sci-fi-esque story. It takes place in the year 2049? I'm blanking on which one of those it is, but I know it's in the 2040s. And we're basically following our main character, Voya, and she's been waiting years for her calling, which is a trial that every witch must pass in order to come into their powers. But something that she doesn't expect to happen is for her to fail her test, but one of her ancestors ends up giving her an unprecedented second chance to complete her calling. So she gets a task of having to kill her first love, but if she doesn't complete it, her family will lose all of their magic forever. But the problem is, Voya's never been in love, so she has to first find somebody to fall in love with, with actually fall in love and then kill them. This premise is so interesting to me, and I was really intrigued by it, and overall I really like the execution of it as well. Like, I really enjoyed this book, and I do plan on reading the sequel when it comes out. I believe it's next year. I really enjoyed all of the characters. I like the dynamics that they all had with each other. I feel like it worked really well. It was also very inclusive. There's a lot of different kinds of characters from all sorts of different backgrounds, which I also really enjoyed. I really loved the tension between our main character and the love interest Luke. I just think that it was done so well, especially with the backdrop of a matchmaking program, because that's how she ends up finding him. It added like this cool extra element to it, which I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the magical world as well that Liselle Sambury created in this Toronto setting. So overall, I really enjoyed this book, and I am really excited for the sequel. It was a quick and easy read, and I had a great time reading it, so I'm very excited to read the sequel when it comes out. I think that this was just a pretty solid debut novel. The next book I read I'm not going to really talk about, but it is Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. I co-hosted an Anne of Green Gables themed readathon called Green Gables-a-thon with my friend Kath, and this was our honorary group book. Really loved it. Obviously, it's one of my favorite books of all time. I have a whole reading vlog that I did for it for my Capturing Classics series that you can check in the cards and down below. All I have to say is in that video, and we all know that I love this book, so let's just move on. The next book I read was A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow by Laura Taylor Namey. This is another YA contemporary book. It's about our main character, Leela, as she kind of goes abroad to England for the summer. Her parents kind of send her away after she's kind of had a hard time at home. I don't know how to describe this book. But while she's there, she meets a guy named Orion, and they get friendly. That was a really bad description. I am so sorry. I've literally never described that book before, and I've also never officially looked at the synopsis. I have no idea. It was a great book though. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a really fun read. It had a lot of descriptions of food, which was really fun. A lot of Cuban food, a lot of baking, and normally I don't really care for food descriptions in books. Like, it's just not something that I particularly care about, but it was fun since it was so integral to our main character and who she was, and it was just lots of fun to read about. But I think my favorite part of this book was the relationship that developed between our main characters Leela and Orion. I really liked the kind of the slow build up to it, from friendship to more. I just think that it was done really well, and I really liked their dynamics with each other. But yeah, their whole relationship felt really natural, how it all came together, and it felt really satisfying by the end to see them actually be together. It was just beautifully done. I mean, I genuinely don't think there was anything that I disliked about this book, which is a good sign. Like, I literally can't tell you anything bad about it or anything that I disliked. It was a very solid book. I had a very good time reading it, and I do plan on buying a copy for myself, since I did listen to it on audiobook, so that I can have it on my shelves and reread it in the future, probably physically, so I can kind of experience it that way as well. But I did really enjoy it, and I do recommend it. It was a lot of fun. The next book I read was Anne of Green Gables, a graphic novel. This is by Mariah Marsden and illustrated by Brenna Thumler. I've read this before. I'm not going to speak much about it. It was a fun time. The illustrations are cute. They aren't my favorite thing, just in terms of like the actual faces. I'm just not the biggest fan of it, but like overall the illustrations are pretty. But I've read this before. I just wanted a quick read for the readathon. It was good. Glad that I reread it. The next book I read was also an audiobook, and it was The Selection by Kira Cass. I can't talk about this one because I'm doing it for a reading vlog, and genuinely I have no idea when that reading vlog is going to be coming out, but it'll be coming out hopefully at some point. I'm not going to talk about how I felt about that book. You'll just have to wait to see that vlog to find out. The next book I read, I also don't want to talk about that much because I actually already read it this year, so you guys can go watch that wrap up. You can also watch the vlog that I did for this book, but it is Counting Down With You by Tashi Bouillon. So yes, I reread this book. I read it for the first time back in February when I had an arc of it, and I read it again when I got my final copy in the mail, because this did come out at the beginning of the month. But I finally had the physical copy. I read it. I adored it. I love this book so much. Like I said, you can go check out my vlog for this book. It's spoiler free, and I just, I don't know, I just love this book so much. It's one of my new favorites, and rereading it was just as much fun as reading it the first time. So love this, recommend it. If you have not picked it up yet, I highly recommend it. The last book that I read in the month of May was Maud by Melanie J. Fishbane. This is a fictionalized story, so it's a historical fiction about the author of Anne of Green Gables, Ella Montgomery, and it's all kind of about her teenage years. I have had this on my shelf for 4 years, and it took me this long to get to it. I had pretty high expectations for it, thinking that I was going to really enjoy it, but as I was reading it, while I was enjoying it, I discovered that I think I would much prefer to read like an actual like biography or read her actual journals or something to learn about her life rather than a historical fiction novel about it, because you don't know how much is real. A lot of it is fictionalized, obviously, and like, you know, you don't actually know what happened in her like conversations. It's a lot of it's made up, and I think I would just much rather prefer reading like a proper like non-fiction book about it. But overall, I did enjoy it. The writing was fine. I enjoyed learning more about Maud because I did learn new things, and overall it was a fun time. I'm glad that I read it, although I don't know if I'm ever gonna reread it, so there's that. So that was everything that I read in the month of May. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. Comment down below what you guys read in the month of May because I'd really love to know. Subscribe if you have not yet already, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!